We start with breaking news from Capitol Hill, where the U.S. Senate could be just hours away from passing the bill to release the Epstein files. This after what at first blush appeared to be a stunning show of bipartisan unity in the House, where the bill to release the Epstein files passed this afternoon 427 to 1. Now, we should note that this astounding margin only came to be after every House Democrat and 4 House Republicans united to make it clear this bill would be voted on and would pass. Once that happened, then everyone else in the House and President Trump ran up to the front of the parade as if they had been there the whole time. Speaker Johnson, who voted for the bill, wants changes for the Senate version so as to better protect the survivors of Epstein's, their privacy, as well as other sensitive material, he says.
There's an easy way to amend the legislation to make sure that we don't do permanent damage to the justice system, and I'm going to insist upon that.
If there's no changes to the bill, will you urge the president to veto it should it land on his desk?
Cross that bridge when we come to it.
Now, Senate Majority Leader John Thune says it's not likely that changes will happen. And we should note the legislation as it stands clearly says, quote, the Attorney General may withhold or redact personally identifiable information of victims or victims' personal and medical files, unquote, and any material that depicts injury, physical abuse, death, or child sexual abuse, or would jeopardize an active investigation or national security. President Trump says he would sign the legislation, although as commander-in-chief, there are legal paths for him to compel the Justice Department to release the files without the Congress getting involved at all. He could do so right this second. President Trump today attacking an ABC News reporter for asking the simple question why he wasn't pursuing that avenue.
You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter. As far as the Epstein files is, I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. But I guess I turned out to be right.
In point of fact, that reporter is a nice person and a good reporter. The president threatened ABC's broadcast license moments later, and over the weekend, when a Bloomberg reporter, also a woman, asked him about the subject, he said, "Quiet, piggy." Why such a short temper on this topic, Mr. President? Today, a group of the survivors of Epstein's abuse and trafficking, accompanied by lawmakers and the late family of the late Virginia Giuffre, another abuse survivor, took to Capitol Hill to remind leaders what this is all about: justice for the victims. And several demanded more from President Trump.
To the President of the United States of America, who is not here today, I want to send a clear message to you. I do understand that your position has changed on the Epstein files, and I'm grateful that you have pledged to sign this bill. I can't help to be skeptical of what the agenda is.
Show some class, show some real leadership, show that you actually care about the people other than yourself. I voted for you, but your behavior on this issue has been a national embarrassment.
Wow. Joining us now, Spencer Kuvin. He's one of the attorneys for survivors of Epstein's abuse and trafficking. Thank you for joining us. How are your clients and other survivors feeling now that this bill has passed the House almost unanimously?
Well, thank you for having me on, Jake. They're thankful and hopeful, but you've got to remember, we're talking about literally hundreds of survivors. I represented 9 of them, including victim number 1, who was the first young girl that went forward to police here in Palm Beach, Florida. And they're not ubiquitous, right? Some of them are fighting as hard as the victims you see in DC. Others want to just forget that their lives ever coincided with Jeffrey Epstein whatsoever. But the ones that are fighting for the release want the full information to be released immediately. And as you pointed out in the broadcast just now, President Trump has said time and again that he could declassify information at the stroke of a pen. In fact, I think he was quoted as saying, just by thinking of it, he could release classified information. So release it all today.
Speaker Johnson has expressed concerns about whether this legislation does enough to protect the privacy of the victims, especially those he just referred to who have not come forward. Do you share his concern? The legislation allows the Attorney General to redact their names and any identifiable characteristics. But do you think that needs to be solidified?
No, I think it's a false issue. It's a false issue that he's raising at this point because the law does protect my clients and other survivors that wish to remain anonymous because of the childhood sexual nature of these allegations. Again, some of the victims have been brave enough to come forward and show their faces and give their names. Others have chosen that they would like to still remain anonymous. And this law provides for that. And that's why this law should be passed, should be signed, and we should see this information immediately.
We heard several of the survivors today in their remarks, including people who voted for President Trump, calling him out, asking him to show stronger leadership on the issue, questioning his motives in some occasions. What have you been hearing from them about their frustrations with President Trump and his administration?
Well, it's frustration. I said today that this is a double U-turn, right? During the president's campaign, he promised that he would get to the bottom of this and release information. And a lot of my clients, along with a lot of other United States citizens, voted for him because of that. He then got into office and apparently was shown what's in the files and changed his mind, or he was briefed on it by the Attorney General. There's no reason why he should have changed his mind. This information needs to be released. And now when he realized that he was about to lose the fight in Congress and it was going to be passed with an overwhelming majority, he then changed his mind again and said, go ahead and release it. So let's see the documents. We want to see them now.
An interesting contradiction in a way. President Trump ordered the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to investigate a number of Democrats named in Epstein's emails that were released by the Oversight Committee, including former President Clinton, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, investor Reid Hoffman, et cetera, et cetera. But according to Pam Bondi, just a few months ago, the Justice Department had already done an exhaustive review of the Epstein material, and there was no one left to prosecute. As this write-up in the National Review puts it, the Justice Department is in the business of investigating crime, not of conducting political opposition research. It would be a federal crime to have conspired with Epstein in a sex trafficking ring. But Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel have already said, after a scorched earth review of the government's vast array of Epstein files, that there is no evidence of that, unquote. How do you view this?
Well, it's interesting. And I think that this is a dangerous point that the president has raised now, because as Representative Massey has pointed out in a number of press conferences, that if there's an open investigation, the Department of Justice can keep certain investigation materials confidential. So there may be an ulterior motive to what the president is doing here so that he can keep additional materials away from the American public by saying that there's still an open investigation. But if they attempt to do that, I have a feeling that there are a number of victims that will file suit under the new law that is passed to force the federal government, based on what you've already just shown, to make sure that this information is released.